Hagar's story begins in the shadow of someone else's struggle. She was an Egyptian slave in Sarai's household, serving faithfully in a position with little voice or power. She was not the one grappling with the pain of childlessness. That burden rested on Sarai. Yet, it was Sarai's desperation and Abram's agreement that placed Hagar in an impossible situation. Sarai's words to Abram, "The Lord has kept me from having children. Go sleep with my slave. Perhaps I can build a family through her," were not just a plan, but a decision that uprooted Hagar's life. In modern terms, Sarai was attempting to use Hagar as a solution for her own unmet desires. Hagar, like so many women today, was pulled into the middle of a problem she didn't create.
The modern parallels.
Women in Hagar's shoes. Hagar's story resonates deeply with countless women today who find themselves caught in situations beyond their control. Perhaps it's the woman who steps into a blended family, asked to mother children who are still grieving the loss of their parents' marriage, or the employee burdened with fixing problems caused by poor leadership decisions, left to clean up messes that weren't hers to begin with. Maybe it's the single mother forced to carry the emotional and financial weight of a household because her partner walked away. Like Hagar, these women are thrust into circumstances not of their choosing and are often left to bear the consequences. The weight of unfair expectations. For Hagar, the fallout began the moment she conceived. What should have been a blessing became a burden. The Bible says, when she knew she was pregnant, she began to despise her mistress, Genesis 16, verse 4. Was it anger, resentment? Perhaps it was the first time Hagar realized the full weight of the role Sarai had forced upon her. In today's world, this plays out in similar ways. Women often find themselves resenting the expectations placed on them by others. Consider the caregiver stretched thin between caring for aging parents and young children, or the wife left to manage the emotional labor of a marriage while her husband remains detached. The pressure to fulfill someone else's needs can create feelings of bitterness and frustration. The conflict, broken relationships. Sarai, too, felt the strain of the decision she had orchestrated. Then Sarai said to Abram, "You are responsible for the wrong I am suffering," Genesis 16:5. Blame replaced gratitude, and jealousy took root. Sarai's desperation had not solved her problem, it had created new ones. Today, this dynamic can be seen in broken friendships, workplace tensions, or family rifts. The fallout of being pulled into someone else's dilemma is often fractured relationships and misplaced blame. Women like Hagar find themselves caught in the crossfire, carrying wounds from conflicts they didn't instigate. God sees and redeems. The turning point in Hagar's story comes when she runs away, seeking refuge from her pain. Alone in the wilderness, the angel of the Lord meets her with compassion. The angel of the Lord found Hagar near a spring in the desert, Genesis 16:7. God acknowledges her suffering and gives her a promise of hope and purpose, descendants too numerous to count. This is the same God who sees women today in the wilderness of their struggles. He sees the single mother crying out for strength, the caregiver overwhelmed by responsibilities, the wife navigating betrayal. Just as he met Hagar, God meets each woman with his presence, reminding her that she is not forgotten.
The hope, purpose beyond pain.
Hagar's story doesn't end in the wilderness. She returns, carrying with her the promise of God's provision. Though her circumstances didn't immediately change, her perspective did. She had encountered Elroy, the God who sees. Women today can also find purpose in their pain. Whether it's turning their experiences into advocacy, ministry, or personal growth, God has a way of redeeming even the most unfair circumstances. What others meant for harm, he can use for good. Conclusion: trusting God in the middle. Hagar's story is a reminder that while life may pull us into the middle of situations we didn't create, God's grace is sufficient to carry us through. For every woman paying the price for someone else's decisions, there is hope in knowing that God sees, hears, and redeems, just as he was faithful to Hagar, he will to you. Trust him to bring purpose out of pain and beauty from ashes.